last night. I just energy, so if I fall asleep today, help you wake me up, please. So I'll be talking about kind of high level about design and creative aspects in regards to iOS and Android. That's my Twitter handle. If you want to follow me, that would be good. And it's sort of going to be, there's going to be some specifics, but most of it is sort of on a high level, just considerations and things to think about when you're designing for mobile. Before I start this, how many people are familiar with Photoshop and how to work with it? Okay. Illustrator? Sweet. All right, so before I start, I want to talk a little bit about my background. You're on I'm doing old school stuff. I'm from this country. Everybody know which country this is?
Germany.
Yes, all right. So I was born there, and then when I was 17 before I came here. And at a sort of an early age, I got involved with computers. This was my first computer. And I didn't have a tape drive, so I didn't wait for 20 minutes about for something to load. Made me a very patient person. So at that time, I was really involved in gaming, obviously. So that was a big draw for me. And then my first other computer was a 286 PC with massive processor at that time. And that was a time where I was really interested in following something that I don't think was very prominent here in the US. It's called demo scene. It was very popular in the late 80s, early 90s in Germany, in Europe early. This is the most popular group during that time, Future Crew, they're from Finland actually. And what these groups consisted of was a coder, a graphics person, and a musician. And they would get together at meets and collaborate. And during the time spent on that meet, code a demo, basically a PC software that runs on the computer. And it was mostly, so the graphics person would use something like Deluxe Paint, if anybody's familiar with that, from EA. That was very pixel. You place singular pixels and make an image, basically. And then you had the coders, and they would basically use math and physics algorithms to code visuals on the screen. And the musician, obviously, you know what he did. They used sound trackers, so they're called. Anyway, so I was following. I was actually part of a group at that time, and small group, not very complicated. But so I was involved in graphics and coding, actually. I remember during that time, actually, my proudest accomplishment probably was a sideways star scroller, 3 levels written in assembly. But I haven't touched that since. And then a couple of years later, it's kind of frowned upon, but I got involved in, well, not involved, but interested and to some respect involved in graffiti. And not the kind, not to this extent anyway, the kind where you just tag it in something or something. So some, visually enticing graffiti, I guess, to me anyway. And what really interested me about that was lettering. How many ways can you stylize an E or an I, and 3D perspective, certain treatments, shading, and all that stuff. So that got me really interested in graffiti. Then some years, so I'm going to skip. I'm not going to go for every step. During the Atlanta '96 games, I did sort of an internship at. My mom used to work for a TV station, one of the biggest TV stations actually in Germany. And I did an internship there and worked with a couple of 3D artists. And that was sort of my exposure to Lightwave, if anybody is familiar with that. And they ran in the morning, they ran a game show, and I did an intro that led to the host, basically. So that was pretty cool. I'd be really interested in the 3D stuff and modeling and And that's kind of where I thought at that point, that's the way I was going to go modeling and especially integration teams. Then a couple of years later, I basically came here. I was in California, did some English programming course, took a back home, and came back for college, basically, and graduated with this title. And shortly afterwards, started working at an ad agency and was involved in some of these things. Mostly print. I was probably one of the only people there that, to me anyway, had a pretty good understanding of web-related, or design as it relates to web and web standards and Ajax and stuff like that. There was really no move at that sense, so I was looking for someplace else, and I ended up here. And still do very minimal print stuff and mostly online design related to online. So Flash, download pages, and involved in optimization, especially I think important is user experience and usability. I was part of committees and doing some internal projects related to that. That was very interesting. Kind of different spin on design, really. And so I have a little test. I haven't tried this out yet, so we'll see if it goes my way or not. So if you pay attention to the screen, I'm going to ask a question afterwards. Here it goes. You guys saw it. There's two sites. Which site would you provide with your credit card information? Two shopping sites, e-commerce.
Second.
Okay, second?
Second.
Who says second? First? Oh, nobody? Okay. All right, so the point here is that, I think there was some people that did want to say second. The point here is that, let's go back quick. That as humans, we make a decision within a split second that influences our behavior. So actually, it's according to some research, it's a 20th of a second it takes for us to look at something and have some judgment on it that influences our behavior. So that just talks about the importance of design. Now, you may still end up shopping from that first site, but you're probably going to take some different steps to get there, like looking at privacy seals or some type of something that encourages you to actually do a purchase there. So that's just one of the importance of design. And I'm going to kind of jump into design, well, design as it relates to Google, I guess. I'll start off with icon design. So, as you know, there's a lot of apps on there, and it's important ever so more to stand out in the App Store or the marketplace. And icon design is potentially something, or is something that the user sees first. And based on what we just went through, basically, we make a judgment call based on the icon. I think that influences your behavior when you tap that icon, find out more and more install it. So it's sort of entry point. So it's important to think about creating an effective icon. And it's really kind of small, but a couple of really simple rules. One is keeping it simple. So here you see you have really just one object, one shape that's sort of the background, and the background is supporting, kind of grounds the main object, but there's contrast to the color. Usually you don't really want to texture, I'll get to it in a second, but if it supports branding and adds some credibility, and you have brand equity, then it makes sense, I think. But, so the point is, one object that kind of symbolizes or speaks to what your app is all about. And everybody's very familiar with the last icon, basically. So don't use words. The reason is very apparent here is that you can't read it, it's not very scalable, and that's just a general rule, unless you really have to, accept it to everything. But display icon, which you actually can turn off now. And it's kind of hard to see in the projector. Thinking about if that really takes away from your icon, if it reduces the way it pops, or if it interferes with the icon, it might be stronger if you don't have that gloss on there, or if you take the gloss off and apply it manually, you could add something. But just giving that some thought, I guess, because it cuts kind of through your image and applies some highlighting and things like that. So, yeah, something to think about. And then figure out ways to stand out. There's some really interesting ways people use that space within the icon, especially in regards to 3D, how it kind of protrudes in the back of perspective, and like a drawer coming out of a hole in on your screen, or a pizza box that opens. We all know this guy, and then or two stack of paper. So just kind of utilizing that space. There's some really interesting things that people are doing, I think, that help you stand out as an icon and as an app. 3D perspective is probably the easiest or most obvious way to do that. But maintaining that simplicity, you can see none of these are really super. I mean, you have texture that just adds richness and doesn't really interfere with composition. And then here's sort of an example. This is a key stamp calendar icon. And how much you really lose moving from that to that. I definitely would agree that the second icon or the icon that we end up with stands out more than in a store. Ideally, I probably would come up with this up along with other icons and put it in there. It's probably more obvious, but you're just simplifying, focusing on really one thing and removing clutter. I mean, background doesn't really add much here in this case. For example, fun text that we talk about. So there's some things to consider. Obviously, these are some icon specs for both iOS and Android. You can see all the different sizes and what they're used for. The pixel count in the parentheses indicates the radius that's applied to the icon. So you can kind of use this type of style as a guide of what you have to concentrate on if you want to submit a message. Actually, a second slide that talks a little bit about some screenshot sizes and what actually shows up in iTunes iStore. Here you have a megapixel radius on the 512 by 512 that shows up in there. Or PNG, what I'm going to call it, is the preferred format. I guess I would advise people when they create these icons to think about compression. There's a bunch of tools out there. Yahoo has a really nice tool called Switch It, where you can basically upload a batch of files and it tells you how much you would save by using the compression algorithm. And you don't really see a loss in quality the way the times I've used it anyway. And there's other more, if you're there, you can use command line tools like Paint Crush and Paint. So this is kind of an overview, and you can see here basically standard iPhone icon is 5727, and then for Retina it's double basically. And there's going to be something right here. So the measurement difference is a little bit confusing. I think it's unfortunate that people don't have some standard, I guess. So Android uses density independent pixel, iOS uses points, and then CSS, not really super related, but we use pixels. So in iOS, for example, 1 point, whether you're on Retina display or a standard iPhone, is the same. But on standard iPhone, it's 1 pixel, on Retina, it's 2 pixels, but it's 1 point in either case. And this will play at here a little bit later. So I would suggest starting with the largest size, because you don't want to start off designing a tiny icon and blowing it up unless you use a certain technique that I'm going to talk starting with 512 by 512 and then downsizing it as appropriate. Ideally, you want to design to the size for 512, 512 in the iTunes store and on the display. There's opportunities to add texture, to add richness and things like that. But when you size it down, you lose a lot of that, so you might just want to get rid of the texture altogether to make it cleaner. So you want to consider these things. I think in a lot of cases it'll be fine if you start with 512 and just output all the other sizes that you use from that. So then ways to I think the preferred method is using vector to start off with. So reason, does it ever familiar with vector graphics? Yeah, shaking, maybe. So basically, it's sort of, if you want to think about it, it's math-based. So when you scale it down, it's just recalculating, and you can rescale it up and down infinitely and not losing quality. So if you did start with a lower size and it was purely all vector graphics, and size it up, you'd probably be fine because you're not losing a lot of, you don't lose any quality. But it's just a good practice in general, especially if you want to apply the graphics for even larger purposes, like screenshots or backgrounds, or so you can repurpose the images that you create more easily versus recreating them to make them look nice on a larger format. And so this is the Photoshop palette, tool palette, if you're not familiar with that. I'm not going to walk through this in another session, probably for these. But these are sort of the main tools in dealing with creating and actually it's not too, editing shapes and vector paths and stuff like that. So, yes. Then another tip to consider is that you see a lot of icons that, well, just before I start with that, so icons for the iTunes store, they actually require you to have 90-degree angles in the corners because Apple does its own rounded corner thing and applying the styles and stuff like that. But some people want to take advantage of the rounded corners and they have their own frames and things like that. And so they try to, use the radius measurements that we have and create those rounded corners and design based on that. So in essence, outputting a rounded icon, which Apple already does for you. So what happens, it's not very clear on here, I don't know if people can see it, but you may end up with these black pixels in the corners. And that happens because when you have a rounded icon, usually you do it on a transparent background. What Apple does is they put it on a black background, and that's how you get the black edges on the icon. So in this instance, what we did is we have an icon, and we use sort of the outer pixel of the edge value, and created a background and applied it to the whole icon. So we end up with a square icon. The pixel's kind of the outer edge where the transparency is more there. We just bleed it to the edges. And then I don't have a screenshot of actually what that looks like on the screen, but it's basically you get rid of these black corners because that was what you can't fit black background. I think general practice. I would that's really hard to read. Sorry about that. I would really use. There's a lot of templates out there. You may be aware, both vector-based and raster. They're basically documents where you design one icon, and then when you save it all, it saves all the different formats for you. You don't have to go through resize, save all, resize again, save all. So it's kind of if there's a few out there I have. So this is you can see. That's actually the template that we just talked about. And just it depends what you're more comfortable with. If you're if you're comfortable with vector graphics or raster, what you want to use. I think the end result can be similar, very much the same. I prefer prefer myself to use Illustrator. You have a little bit more control of the tools and effects that you can apply to the icons. But it's, I guess, just personal preference. And then a really, really important tip is to just follow, I think iOS and Android both have really good interface guidelines that talk about the different icon sizes, what effects to apply to your icons to make it sort of coherent with all the other icons that are already there, and create this sort of seamless experience when someone interacts with you and app. So definitely encourage people to check that out. It's not the most exciting read, but it'll definitely help you better end results. Next, I'm going to talk about app design. So here are all of our icons. There's many more, obviously. So this is a mobile device, right? Not a very practical one. This thing weighs 4 pounds and has, I think, 75 different tools on it. It does have a place where you can attach a keychain, so that's nice. But obviously, there's some usability issues, right? There's a heavy cognitive load in being able to find a tool that you're looking for and want. Well, if it's expensive, not so much. But the analogy here is that you know, your app, it doesn't have to be everything. In fact, it maybe shouldn't. It should do one thing and should do it very well. So you can be this knife, for example. And there's a lot of other apps out there. And what happens really is when you have the more functionality you have, or the more features you have, the more problematic or the more difficult it will be to manage the usability aspect. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's something you should be aware of. I use an extreme example that you might be aware of. So this is an app that basically tells you if it's going to rain today. Right? I mean, there's weather apps out there that do a lot more than that, that tell you forecast and where you are and all that. And this is an extreme example of simplification, but it does one thing, it does it very well. I want to know if I'm being umbrella today. I want to know if I can take my bike to work today. And you have the answer right there. So, another thing to think about is, while it's we'll focus on doing one thing and doing it really well is important. I think we also need to be aware of kind of offering this opportunity of exploring apps in downtime, because there's really sort of 3 different mindsets and when you use mobile apps. One is microtasking. You're busy, you're on the couch, on the road or whatever, and you just want to do one quick thing, task, and done. Email somebody or post a Twitter update and done. Or the other one is the local relevancy. So, for example, I want to find out all the coupons that are currently in this area, or I want to find the public bike path, or I want to see that's actually an app out there that in New York City tells you where trees are located and what kind of tree it is, and all over that stuff. So this local awareness. And then the third one that's really big is boredom. Right? We use apps because we're bored and we have downtime. And games is a big one, obviously, where we use that. Or another example would be fart apps. They were big, not as big anymore. I think that fad has kind of diminished, but so boredom is a big one too. But in that time where you're kind of down and you have a little bit more time, you still focus on simple tasks, but give opportunities to explore. So this one is a calorie counter, where the main task is really entering or updating your what you ate, or your food intake, but you have opportunities to explore kind of stats and how I did and how I'm doing and what I need to adjust. Yeah, that would be think about. And another thing that I don't think people think about a whole lot is that you're really designing a physical experience when you design for a mobile device. And with that, this guy is your best friend, right? You're designing for the thumb, and in most cases, for the right-handed thumb. So what that means is when you look at your mobile device, you sort of have this hot zone. This is where, if you think about holding like this is where your thumb naturally rests. You don't have to make any awkward movements. Once you start going this area, and this area, and this area, you can curl your thumb. Up here, you have to stretch it. This is kind of where it naturally rests. So all your primary functions should be within that area. Unless you're designing an app that is thumb exercising, I would, I guess, consider this as. And you kind of create this Zen-like experience. It's subtle, but it can make a difference, I think, between a good and bad app. There's how easy physically is it to use the app. So here's some examples. This is things. You can see kind of this overlay on here, but your primary task is adding a to item, right? So it's in this hot zone basically. And the secondary task, if you're looking at your two items, so it works really well. And in this case, this is terrific old version, I believe. But the main task here is really looking at your tweets and replying. They have put making a new tweet, kind of where you have to do more physical activity. And I think that's partially because you're kind of moving to a different context, right? You're looking at your tweets and you're replying, and it's all related to what you're seeing on the screen. Once you hit that button, it's sort of a new realm that you're working in. So you have to do a little effort. And so on Android, this is interesting. Obviously, the iPhone just has one hardware button at the bottom. Android has multiple hardware buttons. And so they advise you to put your main navigation at the top instead of the bottom, because one of the reasons is when you put it at the bottom, you're kind of conflicting with your hardware and software buttons. There's a possibility that you might click something you didn't intend to. So they actually guide and say, put your navigation at the top. Now the problem that creates is if you interact with that, you can see your whole hand moving over the screen, and you don't really see what's going on the screen, whether you use that main navigation. So it's not ideal. Yes. So the answer is not 42, it's 44, and this is in relation to iOS. And what I mean by that is that I think we can probably all agree that iOS has the design principles down. Simplicity, certainly usability, clarity, and rhythm, and pattern, and you name it. So one thing that they do that's maybe not apparent is they have this pattern, this 44 points that's kind of visible throughout all the interfaces, and the native interfaces. So this is 44 points high. Same on a keyboard, but this is 44 points high. This is kind of a nice area where the thumb can do the main action without interfering with neighboring clicks. You can adjust the width, as is exemplified here, but the height is only 44 is the pattern. Here's another one. So all of these items are 44 points, top nav, the bottom nav, so that's 44. And then on the home screen, you change it to multiples of 44, but it's still that same pattern, bit of repetitiveness. You did with 88 instead. And obviously, since this is resolution dependent, it's 88 points. So talking about, it's kind of a weird transition, but so I talked about kind of focusing on doing one thing and doing it well. Now, Facebook, they were from one of the very first apps on iPhone. And so there was nothing to really guide them in terms of how to design the app. But I think they went about it a smart way. They kind of replicated the home screen that people are used to. And it's a way to manage the complexity because Facebook is really a platform of apps, just like your mobile phone is sort of a platform of apps. So they kind of mimic that, and I think it's fine if your tab is creating value in a way, right? It's making it easier to get to those main functions if you want. So that's a good strategy, I guess, if you have a complex app to kind of mimic what the users are used to. This is kind of talking about being generous with space and problem of stack controls. I think, in my opinion, this is a lot easier and cleaner to use. And if you kind of put our thumb hot zone on there, it seems to make a little bit more sense in terms of calling to the center. Access to your contacts, doing SMS messaging, it seems logical, like a logical place for all that stuff. And here you have a lot of stuff going on that you could accidentally hit, or it's not very clean, if you will. You have sort of this new tab navigation this is not really prominent in iOS standard interfaces. So it's slightly confusing because it's increasing the cognitive load when people look at it. And then the other thing that some people do is over-design. I don't know if I should point it out, but so this app kind of went out on a limb and said, hey, we're going to make a really pretty interface. But you can see the inconsistency, and believe it or not, that even the Apple interface is something that Apple took some care in educating the user on how to use it, whether it's TV ads or, and it sort of celebrate. It didn't say, here's an iPhone, here's how I use it, but it's through visual imagery to animation, actually people using it, whatever. So to introduce something that a person is not used to on iOS is pretty gutsy. Unless you have a pretty good idea that it's actually increasing the value or making it easier, I would just stay away from it. I think the only place where you can be more creative with that is games. I think games is a place where you want to be more playful, and it's a little bit more about discovering and exploring. So I think there's a place for it, but if you're designing an app, I would stay away from it. Wow, we're near the end already. So basically, my point was it's confusing. Or can be confusing. So I would just, general guidelines, just stick with what Apple is providing in case of doubt. They have obviously pretty well designed system, and people are used to it. There's no reason for you to veer from that, I guess, if you will. Wow, that hard. That's it. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Yes?
What tips would you give to a developer who doesn't know how to design?
Outsource, actually.
What I do with me?
No, I think I find it really helpful. Even I'm not claiming to be an expert designer, but looking at developer blogs, especially of games, I think you can. One of my favorite games is The Incident. I don't know if people are familiar with that, but they have a development blog where they talked about porting graphics from iPhone to iPad, for example, and the considerations. Oh, we have to redraw all these graphics, and but just looking at, I think tutorials are really helpful on them. There's a ton of them out there. One site that I actually like to, for inspiration, like to visit is Dribble. Good. Now it's less of a tutorial, but this is a place where it's sort of invite only, and it's fairly popular prominent designers that work in a variety of industry areas. But what this is basically people sharing snapshots of what they're working on, and then other people can comment on it and give feedback in terms of, oh, you should add a couple of pieces here, adjust this and that. So you get this nice array of different visuals, like, let's see, icon, for example, or you can search if you want. So you get all these people that kind of share their ideas and works in progress. So in terms of inspiration, that's nice. And then just in terms of, so the way I learn and I learn best is by just using the interface, I guess. Just exploring, just using the tools and doing random things and applying effects. Tutorials, I think, are a good head start, good start in terms of, because it's all these little elements like a 4-pixel inner shadow. You can add a lot, but it's usually the heart of a whole tutorial, and then applying it to your own instance or what you're working on might not seem obvious, but it can add a lot. So just going through tutorials and doing it step by step, because then you kind of see the snapshots as you're doing it. You might come up with, or I do often come up with ideas, oh, this will be useful here and there. And then the easiest way probably is just to look at stuff that people put out there for free. You can, for example, Photoshop.
Are there any free tools that are available? Because Photoshop I think needs license.
Inkscape, I really like Inkscape. It's a vector-based program. Actually, I haven't had it installed. And in some ways, it's actually nicer than Illustrator. But it's a free program, it's vector-based, and you can upload scalable vector graphics and EPS and things. So that's definitely a good thing. Anyway, so this is a template, an icon template from the Android, the template pack that you can download. And you see, for example, if you just look at the different layers, I'm assuming, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but every time we see FX on here, it means that there's an effects applied, like on this layer. It's super subtle. It's actually. So we have a drop shadow, and we have another element, another A. It's a shape. So you can go and use this tool, for example, and start manipulating points and stuff like that. That's an example. But this is vector-based stuff, and the quality will maintain. And if you double click in here, you kind of get a sense of what kind of effects are applied to this. So you can see the check marks by each of the effects that were added, and parameters. So if I wanted to increase the inner shadow, you can see it changing in here. Or the size, just stuff to play with, and that's kind of like you have to explore, I think, to get the most of it. And you can do that best probably by an existing template that's out there, and just going through the different layers and double clicking on it and playing with the values. I think it's a good way of.
Are there templates like that available for Inkscape, SVG?
Yeah, they're not this ready-made. There's one by a designer called John Hicks, which I actually have opened. And it's kind of basic, but maybe we can show Inkscape in the meantime. So this is Inkscape, where you have It's actually a pretty nice tool, especially for being free. You know, I'm just putting that kind of thing. I'm just quickly showing interface and you can export it. And again, I would just explore the different tools, the different effects. It's a good one. Let me see. There's a template by John Hicks. I was actually on the one slide. But it's pretty basic. You just basically have a canvas. And then you can start using tools in here to kind of work within that space. And here's its So here are the different layers they have. Here's the diagram mask, so if you take that off, you get the square stuff. It just kind of does it so you can get a preview of what it would look like if it was deployed. So yeah, they're out there. I will say that the vector ones are a little more scarce than the Photoshop ones, partially because I think that more people are familiar with Photoshop more than they are with Illustrator. And actually, Jeff, I wasn't aware of this resource, but Jeff pointed me to a recent one called TapTix. They have portrait down. So yeah. I think actually. But they have, they give you nice starter packs of, you have 300 icons. I think they're quite different shapes, and you can select your backgrounds, different treatments, and stuff like that. So that would be a good place. I don't know how much it's quite nice and be good to start. But I know there are a lot of, if you just search for iOS template, there's a ton of them there. In fact, there we go. So if you do iOS, actually really kid probably, so you can see that there's a ton of results, and some of them are better than others. But I guess what I like for especially for icon design is the stuff that kind of takes care of resizing and saving out, and then you can rework it afterwards if there's a detail that you want to tweak. Oh yeah. Does that answer the question? Does that answer the question? Sorry. Yeah. Jeff?
Yes. In your opinion, should the design work happen up front? So if I'm a developer and I'm not good with graphics and I'm going to design an app, should I get the designer involved right away? Should I wireframe the whole thing and get the functionality working and then bring a designer in? I mean, what's your perspective on it?
I think the closer you can get to the actual design upfront, the better. I don't think it's always possible. So I think that wireframes and mock-ups, rough mock-ups, probably are enough to get a developer started on a project. But there may be nuances once they actually receive the files that you didn't think about, that you have to now go back and revisit. I think ideally you'd have everything kind of designed and then ready to pass off. I think it's probably easier to make tweaks to design based on the limitations on the development side than making tweaks on the development side. So, that's fine.
Any questions?
You guys wanted to see Photoshop action? No?
Sure.
Yes. No, I'm not ready for it, but it's something that I consider. But there's so many. We can have 10 sessions about Photoshop, so it's kind of hard to break down. I think to what's most frequently used, and I think that it's one of the pitfalls, or that a lot of new designers, a lot of people, I think they Photoshop, Inkscape, Illustrator, they're all just tools to get the job done, right? So, and anybody can probably use them, but you still have to have some understanding of design concepts, of balance and white space and all this stuff to make something that's aesthetically pleasing, if you will. So the tools are one thing, and then I think the understanding of some of the design stuff is another thing. So I don't think you can convert all developers into designers, if you will, or vice versa. But some have both skill sets.
So I think you were joking that you said outsource design. So it's a good point. So I'm a developer. I've got an app. I don't want to do the design. What's the best way to connect with designers?
Yeah. So there are multiple things, or multiple ways you can go about it. There's a number of job boards out there, like Elance or
Rent designer?
What's that?
Is there a rent designer like rent builder?
Yeah, there is too. You can use services like 99 Designers too. I think it's really cost effective, and you get basically, it's a site where you crowdsource, you get a bunch of designers submitting stuff for your project, and you pick and choose, you rate them, and you can ask for refinements. I think the really important part about that is making sure that you're asking for the right stuff up front and be as detailed as possible. Just make that as effective as possible. We've had some experience with that here, so. But yeah, no, I do think that outsourcing, even though I've said it jokingly, can be fairly inexpensive, and you can probably get what you want out of it if you go about it the right way and make sure that the requirements are comprehensive. But yeah, 99 cents is one. I'm kind of drawing blank. I know there's a couple of others out there. Spring, was it Spring? CrowdSpring. Yeah, CrowdSpring. Yeah. And we've used some services here with success, so certainly well depending on the project cost, it varies. But you know, 100 from 100 average. Yeah, that's all I got.
Thanks. All right, well, that's it. Thanks, everybody, for coming.